Are you new to small scale farming? Or maybe you're thinking of starting something new on your farm. Why not learn from the mistakes of others? Today we're going to talk about some of the common mistakes people make on their hobby farms, other than starting a YouTube channel about hobby farming.
Right.
If you haven't noticed, one of our favorite things to do is read through your comments. So most of you are very kind to us and we appreciate it. For those of you who haven't, we're going to talk to your moms. But what we like to do is to address some of the comments, questions that you have from our videos. And in case you don't have time to read through all of them, we do. So here's one from the French Gardener, 1865. Thank you for the comment question here. They say, I heard that freshly collected eggs do not need to be refrigerated. Is that fact or myth?
Well, we actually addressed this recently in a video that we put out about safely handling eggs, and we can post a link to that one in the description below. But in case you missed that video, it is true that fresh eggs don't need to be refrigerated. In fact, outside of North America, you go to Europe, Asia, a lot of those places, they're not going to sell eggs refrigerated. They're going to be just on the store shelves.
So we routinely keep our eggs just on the counter.
So do we.
For a month or two. Couple of things. You put them in the fridge, they're going to last longer.
Yep.
Okay, that's going to slow down that air exchange. And also, you don't want to wash off the bloom. If you're going to store them on the counter, leave that bloom on. It's going to help slow that air exchange, help them last a little bit longer, stay fresher longer. So you can keep them on the counter. Just wash them right before you use them. But if you want to keep them a little bit longer, put them in the fridge. Will help.
Yeah, so to sum it up, no, you don't have to refrigerate them, but refrigerating will make them last longer.
All right, good information, and go watch the video. You're going to love it. I can already tell you that. Okay, on to our main topic for today. Common mistakes hobby farmers make. I went out and
Have
used
you just been watching me? Is that where you came
I
up
have
with this
plenty of
idea?
experience, yes. And I've heard it all. I've heard all about it many times. So I use the Google machine to ask what common mistakes people make, and now we can get your thoughts.
Well, I think it's important to note before we get to your list here that we all make mistakes, right? We all, from time to time, have made mistakes with our hobby farming, but that shouldn't discourage you, right? Learn from your mistakes and mistakes we've made.
Yeah.
Mistakes of
Learn from
others.
other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ask these guys' wives. They make plenty of mistakes. Okay, so let's get on here. So Google mentioned that one of the most common mistakes people make is not planning well enough. Do you agree?
Amen. Absolutely. That's a huge one. That's probably, I think, number one, right? Not having an idea of what it is that I want to do, what that's going to cost, what's going to be involved, and that kind of stuff. Sometimes we get a little impulsive, right? We walk by and there's those cute little chicks there.
Oh, they're so adorable.
I'm going to grab a dozen of those because I've always wanted chickens. Not thinking that, hey, I need a brooder, I need a coop, I need some of these other things, infrastructure in place, fences, that kind of stuff. Or, hey, look, they got the fruit trees marked down. I'm going to buy those. Yeah. I'm not ready to, or have any idea of what I'm doing when I'm planting these fruit trees.
Yeah, no matter what it is, whether it's the chicken, the fruit trees, whatever, part of the planning process is asking all the why questions, right? Why goats? Why ducks? Why do I want them? What am I getting from that? What do I need to do in order to have them? How many can I have? All those questions should be answered ahead of time, not just, I saw a cute animal, so I decided to bring it home, right?
And now I have mini donkeys.
I'm waiting for the day you do.
And I can feel your pain there. One day I come home from work. My wife's, hey, it must have been Facebook. Someone on Facebook is selling these little baby goats, and they're so cute.
They were cute, weren't they?
Yeah. So I told her I wanted 2 of them. So we take the van down the road, pick up these goats. They were adorable. So we got our goats with the little diapers on. Oh, they're so cute. We get them home, and I was like, oh, where do we put them? Oh, we need to get a fence. And then it's like, oh, maybe we need to stake them out. So put them on, a rope. And then they would come running and hit the end of the rope. And I just felt terrible for them. And they just took a lot of time. It was a lot of work.
You had to feed them, and you had to provide them water, and you had to. We
had to get calls from the neighbors telling us our goats are bugging their horses or whatnot.
Yeah.
It was definitely, we did not plan ahead. So great advice there. So another common mistake, not starting small. Yeah. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, starting too big is one mistake I see it very often. People decide to get chickens, and rather than getting, 3 or 4 or 5 chickens, they buy 2 dozen. 2 dozen little baby chicks doesn't take up that much room, right? Or maybe they have very little gardening experience, but they get some land and they're like, I'm going to go till up those 2 acres and plant tomatoes, and I don't really know what I'm doing. It's not a good idea.
You'll be surprised how many weeds you can grow on 2 acres of ground.
Exactly.
A lot more than you can tomatoes.
Yeah.
And that's true, right? The problem is that those small mistakes, they become big failures, and that gets discouraging.
Right.
Right. And it can be expensive. It can be a waste of time. It can be a waste of money. So even if you've done your research and be like, hey, I'm gonna start a dairy, right? I'm gonna do soaps or whatever, and I'm gonna have my own milk that I'm gonna use for these soaps and creams or butter or whatever I'm gonna do. And you kind of do the math. It's like, hey, it's gonna be 6 goats. Maybe start with 2, and kind of get a feel for it. Hey, is this something I even like? Maybe I find out that I hate milking goats, or maybe I find out that my daughter's allergic to goats, right? You don't think about some of these things, but some of those things crop up, and it's a lot easier to get out of, or kind of taper back from 2 than if I've already got a herd of 6 or 8.
Yeah, if you start really small, you can learn what the problems are going to be before the problems are big problems, right?
Yeah. So it seems like a lot of these common mistakes go hand in hand. Kind of like this one, maybe underestimating the workload.
Yeah, I mean that's real. You think, oh, it's I'm going to have some garden boxes just on. I don't want a big garden. I don't want to have to deal with all that. I'm just going to have a few boxes on the deck. Well, if you're going to build those boxes, there's some work involved. If you're going to buy them, there's some money involved, right? And even still, now it's like, I didn't realize that putting a box on this concrete deck out in the sun all day, I got to water that thing twice a day. Everything die. There's other challenges that you don't even think about. And so now I got to make sure I water it. Right when I get home from work and get before bed or whatever. Those things creep up on you if you're not ready for it. You think, oh, I'm going to get a couple of chicks. That's not that big a deal. I'll go out every day and collect eggs. Well, you forget that I got to clean that coop. I got to swap out the bedding. I got to do my deep clean, that kind of stuff. Even just, again, building or buying, I got to set up a run in a safe area. Those things all take time and effort and money.
Yeah, you plant that garden, you got to weed, you got to water, you got to harvest. And then once you harvest, what am I going to do with this crop? I got to do, freezing or canning, something to preserve it. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the previous mistake we talked about, which is starting too big. When you start small, it's easier to figure out the problems and how much work it's going to take to do this.
So I'm going to assume that most people are going to underestimate the work involved.
Yeah.
Do you think that some might overestimate the rewards of farming?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to provide for my family. I'm going to save all this money on groceries, or I'm going to breed these animals and sell them off and become a millionaire, or I'm going to start a hobby farm guy's YouTube channel and be able to quit my day job. None of those things are true. They're all terrible lies. Usually, hobby farming, it's a hobby. It's not going to make you rich.
I think most people understand that.
Yeah.
But
things like, hey, I did the research. I want some eggs, and I looked, and this breed, they lay on average 200 eggs a year. So I'll buy 6. That means I get 1,200 eggs. So that's 100 eggs every month. That's enough to last me through the whole year. Well, you might get 300 eggs in August and 2 eggs in January, right? And you may not get that many eggs anyway, right?
Yeah, because
There are
you
all
might
sorts
have
of
a hen
things.
go broody, and she's not going to be laying. They're going to slow down during the winter, like you talked about. Maybe something happens to stress your flock, and now nobody's laying for a couple of weeks. Or they get sick, or they die. They get older, and they're not laying as much, you know? So, yeah, a lot of people overestimate and think the best for what they've
Right.
planned without thinking about all the other things that will minimize their potential production out of the farm.
And I think maybe overestimating the fun of a hobby farm. You get
Sometimes,
out-
right? It's like, oh, I'm going to get these bees. It's going to be awesome, and I'm going to have all this honey and all these things. And this year, right, I started with 2 hives. They both overwintered, right? Going on there, checking on them, adding boxes, looking good. Everything's going good. I had a buddy who was getting into beekeeping. I'm like, yeah, come over. We went through the boxes. I showed him the queen. I showed him all the honey and that kind of stuff. I went back 2 weeks later. Both hives are wiped out. They're gone. They're completely empty of honey. There's just a handful of bees. I think the mosquito sprayer. We've had confirmed cases of West Nile, so they've been hitting our road really heavy. And I've got my bees down by the road, which is a mistake. I'm going to move them next year, but there won't be any honey this year. You know, even though I kind of planned on that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, and we're going to make this and have these for gifts and Christmas. And now there's no honey to pull.
No honey.
So it happens, and the same thing happens, right? People will be like, I'm going to get these, you know, Highland cows. That's the big one around here. It has been for a number of years, right? And they're so cute and they're fluffy and I love them and they're going. Have you seen the prices these are going for? They're selling these, you know,
crazy.
for $3,000 or whatever. Well, all of a sudden now instead of 2 Highland breeders, you got 35. And guess what? Those calves aren't selling for what they were a while ago when you bought and thought you were going to get that money back.
Yeah.
Or people that buy I'm going to buy these chickens and I'm going to sell my extra eggs. You and 13,000 other people in your zip code, if you live where we live. Right, you're not getting that $6 a dozen that you thought you were going to get for farm fresh eggs.
Because you read on the internet that that's what somebody's getting for them. Yeah, your market is going to determine what you get out of it. It may not always be ideal.
Yeah. So don't fully rely on, you know, again, you'll have to gain a little bit of experience on how that works, but just reading something, don't assume that's going to be your best. Don't stake everything on that thinking this has got to work and then it doesn't because now you're destroyed, right? You kind of work your way into it.
Yeah, if you're going to get into hobby farming, get into it for the hobby. And then if it works out later that you can sell eggs, or if it works out later that you can sell some of your crops at a farmer's market, then do that. But don't plan on it.
Other mistakes on the hobby farm, right? Not seeking advice. That's a big one, right? Hey, I'm thinking about getting into bees. Go talk to someone in your area that keeps bees. And not the commercial, the guy that ships this to California, if you're going to have 2 hives. Talk to somebody else that has 2 hives, right? Hey, I'm thinking about getting into goats. Go find people that get on a Facebook group. There's going to be a local Facebook group of, you know, goat keepers and area code or whatever.
And
right?
if they're part of those groups, they're part of those groups because they like talking to other people about it. So it's easy to find advice.
And that will
really
help you
looking for
avoid
it.
a lot of mistakes, especially if you can find people that are local in your area. They can help point you in the right direction as to, you know, hey, these are things to look out for. The other thing that comes up in that same kind of realm, zoning and legal restrictions. Depending on where you live, there may be requirements that maybe I can't sell raw milk.
Right.
Maybe I can't sell.
Or maybe I have to do
produce
certain
on the road.
things before I am
I
allowed
have
to
have
sell
some
my
sort of
eggs.
food handler's license or this and that. So you don't walk into a mess and end up having a problem. Those are things to know beforehand.
All right, so some good advice there. You guys want to know what the biggest mistake a hobby farmer can make?
I already know what it is.
What's that?
Not subscribing to this channel.
Ah,
There you go. And it's not too late for you. You can avoid it right now. It's easy as clicking that button.
Yep.
And also, give us a like if you don't mind. We appreciate it.
Even if you do mind, give us a like anyway.
We still appreciate it.
We'll appreciate it twice as much because you didn't really mean it. You just did it.
All right. Well, if you have a comment about some of the mistakes you've made, leave them for us. If you have any other questions, drop them below. And as always,
keep on hobby farming.